Our thoughts are fraught with feelings of self-doubt and inadequacy, so it's no wonder so many people struggle to love themselves. On this week's episode of the Infusion Breakdown Show, the Breakdown crew sat down amongst ourselves to discuss the key to overcoming these thoughts. Let's see what we came up with.
Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to introduce to you our Black owned business of the week, where we showcase quality Black owned businesses for you to support every week. This week's business is On the Fly Game Truck based out of King William, Virginia, where they bring a one of a kind gaming experience to events throughout the Middle Peninsula, Northern Neck, and surrounding areas. The On the Fly Game Truck experience includes all your favorites: PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, all inside the luxury of an air conditioned trailer to ensure maximum comfort. They even have outdoor games such as cornhole and Connect Four basketball. Be sure to book them for your next outdoor event to take it to the next level.
So the question, why do so many people struggle with loving themselves? That's going to be the question for today.
So I think the answer is actually twofold. It's like a dichotomy between ignorance and familiarity. So we know all the ways in which we're flawed, our failures, our deepest, darkest secrets, and all of our inadequacies. And we have access to the totality of the information. However, with other people, we don't have that. We are only accessing information that's readily made available to us by that person that's outwardly expressed. So if you look at the example of social media, if you see somebody's timeline, they post pictures, they're only posting the good stuff most often than not. So it's easy for you to have a skewed view of that person. However, what I was saying with yourself, you know that it's more to it than that. You see the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's like you have access to all the information. And as a consequence, a lot of people when they have those differences between their perceptions of themselves and other people, they retreat into themselves instead of being around people who care about them and love them. So with that, they're less likely to share their experiences and they kind of strip themselves of their humanity. Because if I were to express myself and share my experiences with you and listen, I think it's more important to listen to yours as well. Then I'm able to realize that my failures, my shortcomings, my heartbreaks, and all that stuff, like all that is not unique to me. People have been experiencing this as long as humanity has existed. And when we run away, or if we hide those emotions, or don't talk to other people, then we start to have another skewed perspective to think that, oh, woe is me. This is the only person that this is happening to. It's only me. And it's through listening to other people. That's why I said more important that you're able to see that in other people and realize that again. And so that's how you're able to strengthen connections and build those bonds and foster that. And I think a lot of people don't really understand what they're doing on a subconscious level. It's not intentional.
I would say Tommy Lee Jones said it best in Men in Black, to be honest with you. He said, the person is smart, but people are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, which really means people are too focused on other people's opinions of them and releasing and pleasing other people, basically. Mainly because when people get together, the opinions of the majority will always outweigh the opinions of the minority, no matter how stupid it is. Like I've been in middle school, and I know you guys probably heard dumb jokes like, "Oh, with your goddamn bubblegum head, oh god, oh, your goddamn bubblegum head." I'm like, nigga, that didn't make sense. What you talking about? But no matter how stupid it is, as long as you got enough people on your side saying "ooh" or whatever, then it's gonna sound like the best shit in the world. So I say that to say people, especially teens growing up, struggle with loving themselves because that constant societal pressure that from other people. There's not that many teens that could just push, and there's not that many teens that could just push that pressure aside and just focus on themselves and figure out what makes them actually happy. And I say teens because usually when you're a teenager, that's usually around the time where you're actually finding yourself, you're a little bit more independent and everything like that. So
Hmm.
that's why I mentioned a teenager. But usually that happens well in adulthood. You find out things about yourself like well in adulthood, and there's plenty of factors today that would stop teenagers and have all that factors as far as like social media, materialization, all of that could definitely affect teenagers and cause them to miss out on that. And if when they're focused on other people, they're not focused on themselves. And when you're not focused on yourself, you're less likely to actually find yourself and actually end up being happy. So, but that's why I say it starts with the parent in a way too. Parents can't teach kids. I don't think parents can teach kids to love themselves, but they can provide their kids with the proper tools, such as building them to work towards a goal as they grow up. Also providing them with the right amount of positive attention without so much of that negative attention, as I mentioned before. And with that, your kid would more than likely grow up relying less on people to get things done for them. You know what I mean? So, and if they do, and if they was to need that help or guidance, they would go back to that parent because that parent laid that stable foundation for them through whether it's positive attention and communication. So as far as self-doubt, that is a part of the societal pressure. People just compare themselves to others mainly off of material possessions, and that's because they aren't happy with themselves, I'll say, really, and they try to fill that happiness with material possessions. And when someone comes along that has more than them, they're going to start to doubt themselves. So but if I was happy with myself and I saw somebody else happy with themselves, like I wouldn't get mad or start to self-doubt myself because they're happy with themselves. Like I'm happy with myself and I see Desmond, he's happy with himself. I'm not gonna get mad like, oh damn, like man, fuck that nigga. Like you talking about? Like no, I'm if anything, I'm being inspired and learn something from him because he loves himself. If I truly do love myself, if it's not like hate or anything like that. And I wouldn't self-doubt doesn't last if you do truly love yourself. I feel like self-doubt can come up, but it will never last. Like you'll sit there and you sit there and think like, oh, am I doing this right? But it will never linger like if you don't love yourself. Because if you love yourself, then that you like, okay, yeah, I'm doing the right thing, and you'll get back on track. That's how I felt about self-doubt, really. Anyway.
Pretty solid. What I was saying about
definitely agree with the positive affirmation stuff because that goes a long way.
what I was saying about the compassion is that through developing compassion and forgiving ourselves, compassion is, from my experience, it's accompanied by a shift in perspective. And so with that, I'm able to look at situations differently. So a large reason the people we feel the way that we do about ourselves, so with negative thought processes and ruminating, and then it just works itself into like a negative spiral. So our past largely determines how we feel about ourselves. So if we have like a negative connection to the past, a lot of us will use the past as a means of torturing ourselves instead of a learning experience. And so when you look at yourself with compassion, it allows you to look objectively at the situation and assess it for what it was and say, this is why I chose this. I felt this was the best decision for me to make given my current situation. And you could say, hey, well, maybe this was wrong, but you're able to use it as a learning opportunity as opposed to a means of torturing yourself where you keep thinking and revisiting that emotionally.
I'm torn about that one in particular because, I mean, one thing I'll say is that my parents always told me I was too hard on myself, but I think
we're torn between what exactly?
Like the whole equipping a child with compassion thing. I don't think that's something that can be taught or you can equip it. I think you learn it over time. I think you get examples of it at an early age to where you can take it and apply it to your life if you have the capacity to understand it. But I think for a human being that acquires most of his his education through interaction and actually experiencing things on their own, like I think compassion is something that you learn with time just because it's not something that can be taught really. It's something that you learn, like you see it and you understand it and then you apply it rather than you hearing it and then trying to apply it because you might not know how to apply it. It might be this useful skill for everyone, but because you don't have the ability to understand when to apply it, it's completely worthless to you. So I think for me, I didn't really understand the whole compassion thing. And my parents were telling me I was too hard on myself since I was like a young teenager. I didn't really understand like the whole compassion part of myself until I really I really didn't. A lot of stuff didn't click for me till I had a kid, man. Like I'm really one of the people that I have to understand stuff through experience because, I mean, in a perfect theoretical world, everything makes sense, but you have to know when to apply that stuff. And if you don't, like I said, if you don't know how to apply it, I mean, it's a great tool to have, but it's a wasted tool at the end of the day. But going into what my theory of why people struggle with being themselves or loving themselves in general is just all put into a broad perspective of ignorance. And when I say ignorance, I mean it in its definition of not knowing. And people typically don't have a true understanding of themselves. And when I say that, you can say, oh, well, I love this, I love that. My definition or challenge to understanding yourself is like, if you strip all your tangibles away, who are you and what are you going to stand for? Knowing that is is definitely one of the biggest steps to ultimately learning who you are and finding better ways to love yourself, and learning what triggers you and how to stop those triggers before they turn into big explosive adult tantrums, things like that. And then the next thing I have is comparisons. And that's something that's amplified during social media, because there's always been comparisons, and I don't want people thinking that comparison is something that's new. Like, this has occurred for centuries. I mean,
Exactly.
I think in the older days, it was easier for you to, or it's harder for you to, fall victim to comparison, because you could only go outside and you could see the new car that Karen or Michelle or your next door neighbor got, or wherever. But now all we do is we literally press the power button on our phone, swipe up, and then we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have the news. It's a forever evolving and fast evolving cycle of comparison, because you can't help but see everything today. The appeal of it is comparison. And I remember, my manager I had at Cloud9, as much as I hated him, he said we live in an experience-based experience-based economy, which essentially boils down to, we're always going to compare businesses based off of which provided the best experience for us. And I mean, that just doesn't, it's not limited to just money and how people, scheme up ways to get their money. Like, it's deeper into the self. I think, for the most part, everything revolves around the self, and then it can be amplified to be used in ways that are greater and greater beneficial to, businesses per se. And then I also have yeah, go ahead.
Could you further relate those two concepts with what your manager from Cloud said about the experience of businesses and then the personal perception?
Yeah, so I think case in point, man, it's just like, if you think about, look at it like this. A lot of businesses pride themselves on, quality of food and atmosphere. So say, for example, there's this place called Commune in Norfolk, and down and then at the Virginia Beach as well. Great place. Food is fairly priced, really awesome atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it's second to none in my list of favorites. But then you also have McDonald's, you have Wendy's, you have Taco Bell. So say, for example, if you're scrolling down your feed and you're seeing me at Commune eating this nice oyster sandwich, and then, you're scrolling on your feed and all you have is, your Chick-fil-A sandwich or your Taco Bell chalupa. And you get into that comparison, it's like, damn, like he's eating so good. Like, why can't I have that? You begin to get into like a comparison of like the smallest things. Like, and for me, because it's a feel good society, and everything's experience based, I'm gonna enjoy the experience at Commune, where the waiters coming to check on me, refill my water without me having to ask or whatever, in comparison to going to Taco Bell and having to deal with attitude because they don't have no more mild sauce.
That sounds like a
So,
personal experience.
I mean, that's what everything boils down to. That's why I said everything really starts with the self, and how you can incorporate, the self into like businesses, and then of course business into the self, ways you can capitalize off that. But did I break it down good enough?
Yeah, that was fine. I just wanted you to
All right.
explain that for me, please. Thank you.
No problem. Second, third on the list I have is childhood traumas. And really, everyone has some form of a childhood trauma, whether it's like severe or on the, lesser part on the spectrum. They're all childhood traumas at the end of the day. But I think the one thing that comes with childhood trauma is the self-victimization, due to feeling like you're the only one who has experienced something like this. Like, people, they want to hold on to their truths rather than putting them out and saying like, this is who I am, you know. And I mean, it's essentially, when you do that, you welcome dialogue, you welcome conversation, you're allowed to express the emotions that you've had bottled up for years. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many times, I've had the greatest conversations with my friends over how we used to get whooped as kids. Like, that is a traumatizing experience based on how bad you're whooped. But when you have that dialogue with your friends, it definitely makes light of it, because it's like, okay, I wasn't the only one experiencing this. And I know, since it's not eating them up as bad as it's eating me up, it's something that I can eventually graduate from and no longer feel like it's pulling at my internal strings as far as like feeling like I wasn't loved or some sort, because their parents might have whooped them, but I've seen their parents give them the greatest amount of love anyone can have. It. So I can now sit here and tell in my mind, all right, I can stop holding this against my parents or whoever else, and actually, give them a chance to restructure and go into a new phase of what love between two people or love between parent and child is supposed to be. Because a lot of people will hold those things against their parents or hold those things against somebody else and then destroy other stuff along the way.
What you were saying about actually opening up and taking ownership, essentially, you're taking ownership of the experience rather than letting it own you and
Exactly.
dictate how the rest you choose to live the rest of your life.
Yep, exactly. And then also the same thing that my last topic is what both of you said as far as the people pleasing, and then of course your parental seal of approval, where you're doing everything for the image it might provide somebody else, or the gratification you might have for seeing your parents happy that you achieved something. Like at the end of the day, if those friends those friends should find joy in you doing what makes you happy, instead of you finding joy in doing whatever it is that they wanted you to do per se. So I think those four things that I have, I mean, I think they take the cake for me.
When did you all decide that you actually loved yourself? Like, when was the conscious decision, or you were able to fully and confidently say that?
For me, it was when I got tired of feeling sorry for myself. Like it was no more need to put on a facade like I was this high almighty person, like I was better than everybody else. I think once I actually like looked and took me for who I was and realized that I was in control of my own destiny per se, like that's when I really developed that self-love, because that's when I got to the point where it was like any failure that I go through in life, I've welcomed it. Like I didn't have the winner's mindset. I didn't put in the time. I didn't do this or that. That's my fault. But I also realized at the same time that I have another chance to go and do what I need to do, and not beat myself up about it. And then I've applied that logic to, friendships, relationships, how I take on any new ventures in life. Like everything goes the same. If I go into anything with a winning mindset and I'm willing to put in the time, then I'm going to achieve it, because I feel like I'm worthy of that achievement.
Was that a conclusion you arrived to earlier or later in your development, like more
Nah,
recent?
definitely later. Yeah, definitely more recent. Yeah, definitely more recent. But I will say, like, and one thing I wanted to do with this episode is not make it seem like we were, tearing people apart and trying to dissect them and whatever.
Not at
But I
all.
think the biggest thing for me was education. And like I say education in a broad sense, not just, you sitting in front of, your teachers and trying to take in what they say. I say education and like ways to stimulate your mind, learn how to meditate, learn new skills, learn your flaws and challenge yourself to address them. And then, most importantly, learn what you enjoy, absent of peer pressure and parental pressure as well. I think when you
Mm.
educate yourself on, because all these things are education of the self, educating the self, educating yourself of the self. Like once you learn all this stuff, man, you can kind of like really get a feel for who you are, what you can do, and how you can do it, and I mean to what capacity you can do it. So like, those are definitely point I think important, because I think meditation, it gives you the chance to just, you know gives you the chance to just be one with yourself, actually address every thought in your head instead of, trying to keep track of the millions that are running through your mind, every day. It allows you to take everything one at a time.
Josh, when did you arrive at the conclusion that you loved yourself or made the choice to do so?
Um, to be honest, everything Des said, it was basically the same thing. When exactly? I would say it was about last year. Um, yeah, about last year. I can't like you want a specific month. I don't know a month for you, but it was about last year when and basically I just came to the conclusion everything with Des. Like I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired, really, to be honest with you. So um, that's what happened. They are really. Yeah. What
What
about you?
about you, bro?
So it was actually fairly recent as well. I said the past few years because I've always had a really high perception of myself. Been very not to the point of being egotistical or anything like that. I wouldn't say. Yes, other people may be different, but so I was also the person who was making myself the most miserable with my thought process. And so I started to play a more active role in deciding where I allow myself to allocate my mental energy. So if I was feeling bad, for example, I said, okay, well, I have 5 minutes to feel bad for myself before I got to get my ass up and do something about it. And through taking those initiatives and actually expressing it, I started to actually behave like somebody who loved himself. Like I started to think of myself as somebody who I was in control of, as opposed to somebody who I am. So I would think if this is somebody else who I love, because we tend to treat other people outside of ourselves, like our friends, our family, better than we treat ourselves, with more compassion in general. So I would think about, okay, if this was a friend of mine who I really cared about, who I really loved, or my sister, uh, and she was in this situation, what would I tell her? What would I want for her to do? And then I started to apply those behaviors to myself. And this is like what I was saying. This even applies to the difference between how we treat ourselves and then people we care about. You think about people who get prescribed medicine by doctors, a small percentage of them actually get the prescription filled. Then you have other people who get the prescription filled, but they don't take it, and therefore the treatment's not successful. But when people go to take the dogs to the vet for some kind of stomach virus or something like that, the dog gets every dose of medicine. They take care of they take better care of other beings, including their pets, better than they do themselves. And so once I was able to figure that out and started to apply the logic, the inverse of that is like, well, if I actually love myself, let me behave like it. Let me actually put my best foot forward in every effort and take full accountability and responsibility for myself. Then I started to see better results and I'm starting to become like even more insular, into the point where I really I really don't concern myself with what's going on outside, like with other people. So when I see people on Instagram or something like that, like that's nice, but it doesn't make me feel self-conscious or doubt myself or anything like that. It's almost like uh, a certain it's a certain invincibility to it, to where you can see things, and that's good for you. I'm happy for you. You have that, but I don't allow that to affect my self-image at all, because I feel like I'm I'm gonna get what's mine anyway. So what you're doing has no effect on me getting what's for me.
Were you ever like that, Des? As far as like on social media, what Brian was just talking about, as far as seeing other people with something else and then just getting jealous of some sort? Were you ever like that?
Nah, I wasn't ever like that because I've always had it. Like I've
Wait, what?
no, like I'm
You
not
always had
lying.
that shit? Like you was always
Yeah,
that
like
nigga?
the new shoes. I had a car when I got my license. I've had all
Oh,
the
niggas was jealous of
suburban.
you. That's what it was. Niggas was jealous of
I
you.
mean, I wouldn't say jealous because I wasn't jealous because I wasn't. I wouldn't say people were jealous of me because I never was the type to hold information. Like I didn't mind teaching people. I didn't mind telling people where I got stuff.
Because it
Like
didn't hurt you.
yeah, I was always quick to put people on because I mean, at the end of the day, like I always had like a very solid understanding that my successes or my tangible successes were a result of my parents. It was like I didn't have to go out and work for anything. And like even when I started working, I just blew it on even more stuff, even more shoes, even more clothes. So like I was never the type to compare myself to other people's tangibles because I had it all at an early age. I never really wanted for much.
What about their success then, not their tangibles?
No, because I realized also at an early age that like people's success comes from their own hard work. I think
Right.
I was more jealous about relationships than I was
Okay, relationship. Okay.
any other aspect of life. And I felt like I was more jealous about relationships because I've always been centered. Like I never was weird. I never tried to, put myself out there to make it seem like I was better than anyone else. Like what you get is what you get is what you get. Because I mean, at the end of the day, the facade falls, and then you truly see people for who they were. So that was the only thing. Like
Do you ever
I'm,
fall?
I,
Do you ever
hmm?
fall back into that though? Do you ever like, as far as a relationship aspect, do you ever like see something and you get jealous again? Like nowadays? Okay.
No, because I realize also that how can I put this without offending? Nipsey said it best. He said that the real shit is gonna last, and anybody else is doing all the other bullshit. Like you put them on goofy time and let that shit expire. Like that's how I look at all that stuff now. Like men and women alike, you chasing that tangible stuff. You like this dude because he can buy you all this stuff or whatever, or whatever reason you're into it. Then so be it. But at some point, that stuff is gonna stop because real life stuff comes into play. I mean, I take it for what it is, man. You gonna stress yourself out. You're gonna lose a lot of follicles, and you're gonna lose a lot of sleep trying to compare yourself to people that you don't compare to. I mean, at the end of the day, the only person you compare to is yourself yesterday, and what you could do to make today a better day.
Yeah, I kind of fell back into that a little bit last week, I guess you could say, the little compare yourself thing. So that's why I asked if you ever go back into it. But then, of course, I stopped and like, okay, well, no, this is not. I can't. Not today. No. And then I stopped. So I was just asking in that aspect, does it ever come back? And you just hit you like, oh wait, nah, never mind. It's cool.
I mean, I think you kind of like if you go through what
relapses happen. That's how I feel. Relapses happen.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, but what I will say is like when you put yourself through what I put myself through, it's like I wanted to put myself through the blender. I wanted to figure everything out on my own. I wanted to see everything for what it was. And when I feel like I got the full taste of the buffet, then I could just watch everybody from above. Like it was like I watch everything from a higher playing field rather than a level playing field. Like I'm up in the skybox watching everything unfold, and y'all are like players in the game still. So. And that's not to be cocky or anything. That's just to say, like, okay, I want to minimize. I want to get the maximum amount of joy out of life with the minimum amount of stress. Period.
It's okay. Call it confidence. You don't have to say cocky. Call it confidence.
It's a perspective shared by the minority of people. I would say to be able to observe things from a objective standpoint and have a level head. Being insular, not being worried about other people.
And I'll be the first to tell you, like I've struggled with self-love. I've been the toxic person, but I've also have the ability to look in myself and say, I am the toxic person, and I'm the only one that can change that. And when I feel like I have that, everyone gets a step ahead of everyone else if you choose to compare yourself. Once you realize that you are the only thing standing in your way from fixing what's wrong with you. Ain't nobody going to fix it. The therapist can always provide you a little bit of information on how you can fix it. But at the end of the day, you're the only one that is going to fix it. So like I tell everybody this, therapy is great, but you're still accountable for the other 23 and a half hours of the day.
Right.
So until you realize that you are the one who controls what you think, what you say, and what you do, you're forever going to be playing from behind.
Gotcha.
Josh, what triggered that relapse?
Social media, like always. Seeing shit. Then I have to get off. But I usually keep a time limit on my 5 minutes a day throughout the week, 10 minutes on the weekends for Instagram, just by itself. But yeah, just social media, just looking at shit and just like, damn. But yeah, like I said, relapses happen. I just had to correct myself, like, okay, yeah, I'm above this. This is not what I am. Like a little bit what Desmond said, it's like, I don't give a fuck. Yeah, I'm cocky / confident. I don't care. So I can say that about myself. Desmond might not say it, but I can say it. And I mean, you got to. I mean, you have to in this world because it's a hard and lonely world. I'll say that.
Oh, cocky. I mean, people might label as cocky. I'm just assured of myself. I know my worth. Yeah. Never doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like some people consider themselves kings. Some people consider themselves gods. It just depends on what you put yourself in, I feel.
I'd rather just be me.
Just be you.
Because I feel like a lot of that,
the ladder.
When it comes with when it comes to all that, like the arrogance, cockiness, confidence, our perspective, I feel like it's how we label it is not so much important. It's the substance that backs it. So somebody who's arrogant, they may have a high opinion of themselves, but they don't have the skills to support it. Where somebody who's confident, they're confident in themselves and their ability to grasp new concepts and advance themselves. So that's why I think that there's a direct relationship between confidence and competence. So through breeding your competency, you increase your level of confidence in yourself in any given situation or a specific situation, because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're going to be good at everything else. And
Yeah, I agree with you, Bryan. I think it depends on what you do with it too. Like, how do you handle it? Like, I've always felt like if you have that power to do good, then be humble. Don't be arrogant or anything like that. So that's how I feel. If you do have that.
life, I can't say that I believe in determinism or anything like that with any degree of certainty whatsoever. But sometimes it would seem that way, because when you get above yourself at a certain point in time, I feel like it's really funny how life has a way of humbling ourselves. So the moment you start thinking that you got it like that, something will happen to let you know you don't.
Facts.
Yeah. I think I'm always prepared for that thing to happen though too. I think I'm okay. Something's about to happen. I know it.
Yeah,
You never be too comfortable with how it is.
right.
I definitely relapse in ways like that. Like I think the easiest way, I was talking to my boy about this, one of my mentors for Forex. I had did all my homework to execute the perfect trade, and I let somebody else influence me into not taking that trade. And like I was pissed about it because I was just like, man, like if I would have believed in me, I would have, I'd have had a successful trade. Like that's what I've been focused more on, like learning the skill and being profitable instead of trying to get like the max amount of money possible. And like pissed, like I was hard on myself because it wasn't a failure because I allowed myself to fail. It was a failure because I allowed myself to listen to somebody else. And so I was on my head for probably about a good 2 hours, and I was like, you know what? It's another day.
At what point do you cut off the advice you get from somebody else to doing it yourself? Because I mean, they could give you everything you have to succeed, but
I think you cut it off when you realize it doesn't check off all your boxes. Like I think part of learning a skill or a craft is learning step 1 to step 10. If it doesn't check off every single step that you've learned, then you'd be taking that advice with blind faith. Like for me, I have very extensive technical analysis I do. Everything was telling me to go this way, but I chose not to go that way because somebody that was doing it a little bit longer than me said you should do it this way. Even though everything checked off my box, I still chose not to do it.
oh, yeah.
So
Do you think the length of time that they've been doing it had any impact on whether or not you listen to them?
I think success rate did. Like I mean, we've been successful at what we do. Because this was something that I did on my own. Like this particular analysis I did on my own. I didn't tell nobody about it. I just had it, and then the pair came up, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it this way. And of course, it didn't go that way. I mean, it did go that way. I mean, it essentially did. It was one of those things where I was in the trade and I left early because they were saying it was going to go a different way than what it was.
I
And
don't
then
see
went
any,
the way I said it was going to go.
I don't see any harm in listening to other people in just the act of taking an outside perspective if it's offered or if you ask for it. But the problem is when you apply things that go against your best judgment.
Or your
So
instincts, or your
well,
instincts.
I mean, instincts can be wrong too.
Yeah.
But like sometimes I've gotten away from this. Like when I was younger, I would ask other people for their opinion on situations, and then I stopped doing that. I realized if I'm the one making the decisions, at least I know that I did what I wanted to, and I was happy with the outcome of it, and I can use that as a learning experience because I felt like I was asking for too much advice and things like that. But I don't see anything wrong in itself of asking people, and I mean maybe it's useful to you, maybe it's not, but it opens you up to an outside perspective, so you're not just in like a soundboard where you're just bouncing your own ideas off your own skull, and then you're hearing the same thing all damn day. And it's like, okay, of course you're not gonna have a new perspective because you listen to yourself. So I mean, if we have like these conversations, sometimes quite frequently actually, like we'll have these conversations and they as a result I question my own ideas or my beliefs on a particular topic and things like that. I mean, nothing's wrong with that at all. I think that's where listening is helpful for us. Don't mean
Yeah.
I'm gonna do all the shit we talk about. Josh says jump off a bridge. Am I gonna do it? Hell no.
But I say instincts because I've realized that when I don't listen to my instincts, usually what I don't want to happen happens. Like I'll be like, I think that people label this as a super ego, basically that voice in your head that's telling you like, oh wait, should you? Something's wrong here. Like you shouldn't do this. Like it's something. Usually when I'm playing Call of Duty, like someone's behind me out there. I get killed from behind, so shit like that. So yes, I realized that when I listen to my instincts, good things usually happen instead of when I would like turn away and do the opposite. So that's why I say instincts really.
And I'm assuming this applies to situations of a higher magnitude, not just Call of Duty, right?
Yeah, not just Call of Duty. No.
Okay.
That's important though. Yeah. Don't.
Hey, what's your gamer tag?
They don't even know that, but nah, no. PlayStation 3 is Joshua vs Society, basically like my.
Let's go ahead and throw that up.
Yeah, I know. Anything else you guys had? Bryan,
Did y'all say ways that y'all, things y'all practice to improve self-love?
Personal practices? Yeah. I mean, we haven't gotten into it, but we say the concept, and I guess that would probably be a little bit better to be more specific instead of being vague and say do things that you're interested in and enjoy. So like fully, there's a number of things that I start to do just for the sake of my own satisfaction and because I enjoy them really. So like plants, of course, I love plants, and I used to hate growing them growing up because my parents they would have us outside planting flowers by the road and by the house and stuff like that, and at that point in my life, it felt like I was on a plantation or something like that. I just hated plants that much. But as I got older and I made the conscious decision to do that my own, it's like something I did out of my own curiosity. I started to realize how soothing it was and just for me to focus on the particular thing that I was doing at that point in time. So it was a way for me to transport myself mentally out of anything that's going on. Like I would actually be 3 hours before a final and I would be sitting there like repotting or starting new seeds up for apple trees. I'd be doing stuff like that. And it allowed me to, like I said, remove myself from the stressful situation and have a renewed perspective. So I was sharper when it came time to do that. And then you kind of touched on the meditation aspect of mental sharpness and improving yourself and honing your awareness. And so I think over the past few years where I've been adopting the yoga practice, a lot of that sometimes like it's not even the action of me going through the asanas that I'm doing. It's like I'll just lay on the mat and just focus on my breathing and be absent of thoughts. So thoughts they'll surface, but I don't allow them to stay. So it's just like you acknowledge that they're there and just let them pass. And the analogy that I've read is similar to leaves falling into a stream. So the leaf will fall and it just passes. It doesn't stay there.
It's
And
just a DVD logo hitting every corner of the, of the TV.
yeah, so like the thoughts will pass, but just that allows me to be more in tune with myself because I'm just focusing on my breathing at that point in time and how like the different sensations of my skin, like it's cold in the room, and I notice that, but I don't care about it. And so just a lot of those things, like sometimes like if I'm having like a really particularly hard day or something like that, I'll just make like a fire as dinner, so like something one of my favorites. It's just doing things that I legitimately enjoy because I want to. It's that simple for me.
Yeah, it's the same with me really. I do editing, and one thing I really like to see is really my end result of anything I do as far as project wise, like seeing a video that I'm done editing and seeing like not really other people's reaction, but how I feel about the video and how it makes me feel. So I really say editing and getting a project done is what I really thoroughly enjoy. As far as like a hard day, like Bryan, usually that comes with me psyching myself into thinking I'm bored and me just going back to social media and then finding shit I don't like. So that's usually what happens. So really on the tough days, it's really about just keeping myself busy and doing things I really like. Cause I mean, I picked up reading again. Like I never stopped playing PlayStation, but I still play PlayStation. Just doing things like Bryan said, I thoroughly enjoy. And I kind of take it as this, like if I was here by myself, whether the state or planet, if I was by myself, would I still enjoy doing what I'm doing now? And without other people around, that's basically what I'm asking myself. So, and I enjoy it. So that's, I think that's the important part really.
What about the specifics for
Sound
you, Devs?
Um, let's see. I think my life, as it pertains to today, man, is more or less consumed with learning the skill. My biggest challenge is things that keep me present and sane. I think that's the most important part. So doing things that keep you present and sane, both of what you said are things that fit that bill. But for me, it's like learning a skill to where I'm not dependent on somebody else's final say or somebody's somebody's opinion. At the same time, though, unlike I guess what Josh said as far as his video editing, one thing for me is I've learned that I get the most fulfillment out of life that kind of erases any doubts I have about myself or whatever you want to call them. The biggest thing I have is like self-service. Like it gives me a lot of joy when I do a do a great analysis and I send it off to my boys and they're able to profit from it. Like that's a service, because sometimes I'll send off a trade that I won't even enter, but I'll see that they entered it and they were profitable from it. Like being of service that way to where I'm able to bring another dynamic or aspect to an industry that has multiple. So that's one way I do it. Another way is with my son, man, because having a toddler at this age is tough. And one thing everybody always tells me is like I make it look easy, but one thing I always do is like I understand that he's 2. That's it. If he's doing something that I don't understand, I feel like I'm getting frustrated because he's moving at a million miles per hour and I'm still driving in my 25-mile-per-hour neighborhood. Then I just say, okay, that's fine. Like it's okay to let things be, and it's okay to let kids be kids, because at the end of the day, we're just big kids. Like you checking yourself at the door. So there's plenty of times where like I'll be having, a shitty day and I'll be washing dishes or cleaning or whatever. And he'll just be running at a miles a minute and I'll just put my headphones on. I'll disconnect myself so he can do what he wants to do and it not annoy me, because I'm an introvert. I like peace and quiet, and he is loud and he wants to run and he wants things to be his way. So, you have to respect that. You don't want to ever, deprive a kid of their chance to be a kid. And then when it comes to routine, man, I think the most important thing is allowing yourself to feel the emotion, like feel the emotion and depression that comes with falling off your routine, so you know what it's like and how you don't want to feel again. I think that's the most important thing. I think people think that, when you beat whatever whatever mental challenges you have or whatever, like they don't come back. They always come back if you allow it to. So I think it's important that you don't ever run from it. You feel it for what it is, remind yourself what it is, but don't be afraid to take the time to feel every emotion and then remind yourself that you can bounce back and, of course, bounce back. Like I actually had that last week. I was just 2 days, woke up, didn't feel like getting out of bed, called out, spent the days to myself, cleaned up, spent time with my son, did everything that I normally can't do. And then when I got back to work 2 days later, my manager was like, hey, what's going on? I told her what was up. I'm not sorry. Like, you can't feel sorry for doing what's right for you, because if you do, and I don't ever want to preach this, but if you ever, dictate your untimely demise, life still goes on. You don't want to ever think of what life will be like if you're not here, because life is still going to go on, and that's the harsh reality. So like, accept everything for what it is, and then, do what you can do to keep it moving.
I like what you said about being present, because I feel that's really hard for a lot of people, just to remain present and be in this moment instead of just thinking about the past. Or we had this episode.
I wish we had an episode on this.
Yeah, about remaining present. Yeah, that's definitely one thing. And I like what you said about you trying not to let Lucas annoy you. You just put the headphones in, because I've seen a lot of instances where I'll be on like FaceTime or something, and I see somebody argue with their kid. I'm like, why you don't need to do that? Like, just you're just trying to mold them into what you want. Right? Like, you don't need to do that. Like, just I know you had a long day, but don't take it out.
You got to pick your battles.
Yeah, just let them be free. Yeah, I like that. It's cool. Anything else you want to add, bro?
No, sir.
All right, so Lil Birdie told me we don't have an album of the week, but we do have a book of the month. though.
Yeah. So as y'all already know, last month was the autobiography of Malcolm X. This is a great month to keep it black. So we're gonna go with the Black Presidency by Michael Eric Dyson. If you don't know, he's a professor from Georgetown. He's been on everything. He's been on ESPN, CNN, and all your major news networks, and then he does a solid job of breaking everything down. So I haven't started it yet, but this is going to be the book I do start and finish next. So pick it up, read with me. Let me know what you think.
All right, guys. If you guys like the discussion, don't forget to hit the like, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.
Guys, thank you for tuning into the discussion. If you guys want to see more content, we also had the Feel the Love series with Bryan Carey as he breaks down the methods of plant growth. Joshua versus the movies, where I go against all your favorite movies, and Joshua versus the music, where I go against all your favorite music videos. So don't forget to check out the content, and I'm going to see you guys in the next discussion.